Your Creative Force by Avianne is currently available on Global Voice Radio.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a fire. Broadcasting from the San Francisco Bay Area, the all-new all-hit show on creativity. Hosted by international award-winning artist and entrepreneur, Avianne. You're listening to Your Creative Force. And now here's your host, Avianne.
Hi, this is Avianne coming to you once again from the lovely San Francisco Bay Area in California, the USA. And today I have a jam-packed show for you guys. Oh my goodness, you are not going to have one boring moment today, I can guarantee it. Our topic for today in episode 22 of Your Creative Force is entrepreneurs born or made? This is an interesting question that I have come across many times. You know, people would say things to me like, oh, you're so talented. This comes so naturally to you. Or they say things to me like, wow, you must have been born with that creative gene, or you must have been born with that entrepreneurial spirit. And you know what? It makes me think often how much truth there is to that, because I think there is some truth to that, but I don't think it paints the entire picture. And because I was interested in tackling this topic with you guys today, I actually went and I read up on this topic, and I actually went and did some research and looked at some videos on the topic, looked at what people say about this topic, people who have been entrepreneurs for a long time or academics who have studied this out for many years. And I've come to the conclusion that it's actually both. Entrepreneurs are both born and both made. So I'm not going to leave you in suspense on that. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I believe from the research I have seen, the topics I have encountered with regards to entrepreneurship, I think it's both a matter of being born with certain traits, but then you also are made because you have to do the work, right? One example I would like to use with you guys is the example of Mozart. We all can probably agree that Mozart was most likely born with innate musical ability. But here's the thing though, right? Mozart still had to play the piano. You see what I mean? Those abilities don't really help you and are not really going to get you very far in life unless you actually do something with those abilities. So I think the real secret sauce with entrepreneurship has to do with action, right? But how you take action, if you're motivated to take action, and how you are able to stick to the actions you take and actually see projects through, some of that does have something to do with who you are as a person. So definitely your characteristics, your background, your character traits, your personality, your DNA, all of that do come into play, but I don't think that that is the be-all and end-all of everything, right? I've also met people in my life who have been born with extreme intelligence or extreme abilities, but they never really develop those into anything really significant because it's like they never really go the extra mile. They never really practice. They never get a coach. They never really train to become excellent in a certain thing. And so even though they may have super incredible intuition naturally, or they may have super incredible athletic abilities, unless they actually train with it and work with it and practice it, they don't really become super great at it and don't really end up being very successful with it. And then, of course, the question stands, are entrepreneurs born or made? And then how are they born or made, right? So today, in episode 22 of Your Creative Force, I want to tackle this question. And the answers we get from both extensive academic research and interviews with successful entrepreneurs may actually surprise you. Though I have touched on this subject in previous episodes, I really think that there is a lot of valuable applicable truths to be garnished from knowing both how entrepreneurs are born and how they are made. Both have merit and both come into play during our journey, however large or small our business may be. The answer is not really that simple. It's kind of like the chicken and the egg, right? And the answer is also not always that clear. Often we are not even aware of the traits we are born with or the role our environment and experiences, for example, may play in our journey's development. So I want to refer to some articles and experts on the topic and also to the often open-ended conclusions that I have drawn on this subject, okay? So some of these guys are hard to track down for an interview. So what I do is I go study them out. I read up on the subject and I pick a guy or two guys or a few girls who really have made an impact or an imprint in the world on this topic. And then I share with you that information. So it's almost like you are hearing them being interviewed, right? So we are going to start out in part 1 today with an interview that was conducted on April 6th in 2017 by Laura Norman. She's from Salesforce and she can be found on the salesforce.com blog, some of the articles that she's written. And she actually interviewed Troy Henikoff. Troy Henikoff is an entrepreneur, a venture capitalist, and a lecturer at Kellogg School of Management. He's also the founder of Techstars Chicago. I'm not sure what Troy is doing right now, but that is what Troy was involved in when this interview was done with Troy, right? So we are going to dive right in and really look at the questions that Laura asked Troy and how Troy responded. I really enjoy this interview because I feel it hits the nail on the head with so many aspects of this question of are entrepreneurs born or made? And because Troy is both an entrepreneur and an academic, I feel he gives us a very good oversight and a very good look behind the scenes of what these questions really mean and how they play out in reality. So with no further ado, I'm going to dive right in. The first question that Laura asked him was, Troy, you've started several successful companies. Did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? And Troy's answer may surprise you. And this is actually an answer that many entrepreneurs give when they're asked this question, if they always knew they were going to be an entrepreneur. Okay, so I want you to really listen carefully to what Troy says to Laura when she asks him if he always knew that he wanted to be an entrepreneur. Troy says, no. I got into entrepreneurship by mistake. Like many people, when I graduated from college, I wasn't exactly sure what to do next. At the time, PCs were just becoming a legitimate business tool. I'd seen a tech company in Boston I was interested in, but there wasn't anything like that in Chicago. So a friend suggested that I should leverage my previous couple of summers of programming and start a consulting company myself. Okay. Quickly standing still at this answer that Troy gave, I kind of agree with him here. I fell into entrepreneurship by accident. When I was really young, I actually wanted to be a lawyer. I never knew I wanted to be an artist until I was in my late teens. And then I never knew that I was going to turn my art career into an entrepreneurial career until I was in my early 20s. So I kind of became an entrepreneur out of necessity and by accident, much like Troy, because I studied fine arts and I realized in the second second and third year of studying fine arts, I realized the only way I was going to make any money out of doing this, the only way I was going to be able to earn a decent living out of this was one of two things or a combination of the above. And that was either I had to teach at a university or at a college art classes, or I had to start my own business. So through the years, I have taken opportunities to teach and I have taken opportunities to start my own business. And then eventually, fast forward many years, I started an art academy. I started to sell my art to international clients from my own platform. And I actually turned my art career into an entrepreneurial career, right? So I actually fell into it by accident, much like Troy did. So next question that she asked him, how did you get from there to where you are now, teaching the next generation of entrepreneurs? And Troy answers, after building and then selling that first company, I started several more. I picked up a lot of knowledge along the way and decided I wanted to help other entrepreneurs. That's when I began teaching entrepreneurship at Northwestern and the University of Chicago. I also started a venture firm to invest in great people and ideas and started Techstar Chicago, an accelerator program that mentors great startup talent. This, to me, is also a wonderful answer that Troy gave in this interview, because most entrepreneurs, like Troy, you will find that they actually really care about people and they actually want to see other people also succeed at their dreams and goals, specifically entrepreneurship. And that's something that I also teach other artists and instruct other people about, is how to start their own businesses and how to actually take their art and sell it and turn it into a career. I've actually helped people over the years to do that because I actually care about other people's dreams and plans and visions. Entrepreneurs are builders. They are visionaries. They want to take something and turn it into something more. Okay? So that's something very important that Troy was touching on. Then, the question she asks him next. You've worked with a lot of great entrepreneurs. What do you think? Are they born or are they made? And Troy answers in the following manner. Although you can learn a lot about what it takes to start a successful business, there are some skills that you just have to be born with. There's a certain type of personality that does well as an entrepreneur, and that is something that just can't be taught. Okay, now I want to quickly pause here and just point something out to you here. Troy is not talking about extroverts or introverts here. He's not talking about extroverts versus introverts. A lot of times, I think people make the mistake to think that extroverts do better as entrepreneurs. That's not always the case, okay? Extroverts can also come across badly. They can come across like they are very pushy or very arrogant. So just because you're an extrovert does not mean that you will necessarily be good at building an entrepreneurial business, okay? You can be an introvert, but if you have really good people skills and you know how to pace yourself and how to apply yourself, even in situations that may not totally be your cup of tea, you can totally succeed. So I want to almost just break a little mold here and tell you guys, I actually do not believe that being a successful entrepreneur depends on being an extrovert, because I have seen extroverts succeed at this and I have seen extroverts fail at this. Okay? So I want you to be very much aware of that before we continue. The fourth question that Laura asks Troy is very interesting also, because here she asks him more in detail about what are the essential qualities of a great entrepreneur, right? That is her question. Troy answers in a very interesting manner. He says, I've thought a lot about this during my years teaching and working at Techstars. I have seen the most successful entrepreneurs have 4 buckets of skills. The first bucket, they have the right DNA. There are some innate traits that make it easier to become a successful entrepreneur. You need to be very comfortable with uncertainty. You need to have a bias towards action. You need to have unwavering optimism. It's not that you can't be successful without these traits, but it will impact the way you make decisions and operate. And to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to be able to manage the adversity that you will encounter every day. I translate what he said here under the right DNA as fortitude. I think people who naturally have fortitude do better in entrepreneurship. Fortitude is your ability to deal with adversity and to deal with bad things happening to you in life and to persevere and to succeed and to overcome things in your life. And I think the quality, the personality trait of having fortitude is actually something that can be built into a person. But I also think there's a DNA aspect to that. There's an innateness to someone who has fortitude. Maybe I'll do a show on fortitude someday and go a little deeper into the definition of that. So that was the first bucket, the right DNA. Second bucket, book smarts. This is probably the easiest skill to develop, but you can't be successful as an entrepreneur unless you learn the basic fundamentals of running a business. It is critical that you understand basic financial statements like income statement, balance sheet, and statement of cash flow. You need to learn the mechanics of your particular industry, etc. There are things you can learn through books, apps, online classes, and more. Okay? Then, the third bucket is a network of mentors. There are some skills you need to grow a company that you can't learn from books, but only from others. Experienced mentors can help you parse the details of a particular problem and figure out how to respond. Building on their own experience, they can help you consider all the aspects of a situation. Venture firms talk about smart money, which is having people on the board of a startup who've been through it before. And even if you have a small business, even if you don't have an extensive board of directors, etc., I really advise you, this is where coaches and mentors come into play. I have board members. I call them board members, though I am not a super huge business. These are just a collection of people that I turn to for advice in my business. I bounce ideas off them. I ask them for quality control of certain aspects of my business that they may know more of. Maybe they have certain roles that they play in the operations of my business. But I do think it is very helpful to surround yourself in any business venture with mentors and network people who really get you and who can really help you roll the ball forward, right? The fourth bucket that Troy mentions here is a lot of practice. There are other skills that you can only master with practice, he says. Pitching your business is one of these. Practice, practice, practice. It doesn't matter how many videos you watch until you've been in the hot seat dozens of times. It's hard to be good at it. Practice helps you become good in a stressful environment. Negotiating, problem solving, understanding your customer, all these are skills that take time to master, and there is no substitute for practice. Bring all four of these together and you will have an amazing entrepreneur. Let's quickly repeat these four qualities: the right DNA, book smarts, a network of mentors, and a lot of practice. I, by the way, fully agree with Troy on these, and I will touch on these again later in our episode today. Next question that Troy is being asked: how can you tell if someone has the right DNA? Interesting question, right? Troy says, I don't have a particular formula for telling whether or not someone has the right DNA, but you can ask open-ended questions that give a picture of how that person handles adversity, risk, and uncertainty. For example, you may ask someone to describe his or her ideal vacation. Someone who's more risk adverse will have every detail rigidly planned, maybe even by someone else. That might be a great person in my company, but it is not an entrepreneur. I'm more interested in the type of person who will go on vacation with only a rental car and the first night's lodging booked. That person is looking for adventure and definitely comfortable with uncertainty. So yes, you can tell. You can tell the difference, and you need to learn to read people, right? To be able to tell the difference. That's what I say. So next question. What's the best way to pick up the tools of the trade? Troy says, I advise my students to find a business that excites them and a company where the leadership is whom they want to learn from. Then get in that door any way they can, even if it's sweeping the floors. The thing is, you'll be so good at sweeping the floors that you won't be doing it for long. Soon you'll be helping with marketing, and before long, you'll be heading the whole department. If you're good, you'll get more. And all that time, you'll get to learn from the people you want to learn from. Obviously, this doesn't happen at a big corporation with a lot of bureaucracy for moving people up the ladder, but it happens every day at startups. Very important. Sometimes you can learn a lot by joining a small business, especially when you're really young and you're not yet looking at climbing that ladder too crazily or too stressfully right at the beginning, and you just want to get some skills. You just want to get some foot in the door, some experience under the belt. Often a startup or a small business is a good way to start out, and then from there a lot of people build their entrepreneurial pursuits or start climbing that corporate ladder, right? You can learn a lot by working for someone directly who can teach you some of the ropes before you go into a bigger kind of setup. So, last question that Laura Norman is asking Troy Henikoff here, okay? And that is, what's your advice to people who are considering going back to school? Oh my gosh, right? Should you go to college? Shouldn't you go to college? Oh my gosh, okay? Many entrepreneurs have this question. Here's what Troy says. It really depends on the portfolio of tools that you have. For most people, going to school for school's sake isn't going to help them be a more successful entrepreneur. After I started my first company, I realized I needed to know a lot of things that hadn't been on the syllabus when I got my engineering degree. I went back to business school and took the 5 or 6 classes I needed, but I didn't finish the degree. There wasn't going to be a promotion for me at the end of it all, but I'd pick up the tools I needed to take my company to the next level. While it's a great resume builder to finish the degree, if you have the time and resources, it's not a requirement. In general, you learn best through experience. It's more valuable to wrestle with a problem than to read about it in a book. Okay, and that ends this interview with Troy Henikoff by Laura Norman. Okay, go look her up. She is on the salesforce.com blog. Okay. And before we conclude part 1 of episode 22 of Your Creative Force Today, Are Entrepreneurs Born or Made? I just want to mention something on the last point of what Troy said here. Here's the thing. Should you go to college or shouldn't you go to college? Okay. The first thing I would say if someone interviewed me about the subject is going to college in itself will never ever make you an entrepreneur. Okay, if you think you're going to study any field, any degree, anywhere, at any college, doesn't matter if it's Yale or your local community college, has no bearing upon it. Whatever you study in whichever field you study it in, even if you study business or entrepreneurial qualifications that some of the universities are putting out these days, you are not going to walk out of that degree and as a result automatically be an entrepreneur. Okay? Entrepreneurship has to do with a lot more than book smarts and a lot more than school smarts. So if you think having 5 degrees in business is going to make you an incredible entrepreneur, you don't really get it, because that's not going to make you a great entrepreneur. I personally have no degrees in business. Okay? I know a lot of successful entrepreneurs that I can name to you who have zero qualifications in business, and they are fantastic entrepreneurs in a variety of fields. A lot of them have studied, a lot of them have done a lot of coursework or a lot of things that they've developed over the years in terms of skills and in terms of being informed about things. But just going to school will not make you an entrepreneur. If you can take what you've learned at school, whatever it is that you've learned at school, and you can apply it within the context of entrepreneurship, that is what gets you somewhere. And here is why. There are certain things I don't know about business because I never did a business degree, right? But I can hire people. I can pay other people to figure those things out for me. So I don't need to know every single thing about business. I can pay others to figure it out for me if I really need to, right? And I can go with my intuition. I have a very strong intuition when it comes to business. And my intuition is one of my strong, maybe DNA driving forces, right? That I've just developed very strongly over time. So I just want to make that clear. I do value education. I do value having a college degree. It's always good to have something behind your name. That old adage of it's good to have something to fall back on, that's always true. So I'm not dissing education. I have a very sought after degree in fine art myself, and my qualification and the subjects I've studied and the subject matter I've dealt with, and especially subjects like critical thinking skills in philosophy, those things have helped me over the years in my business. And I definitely think there is value in having a formal education, but I do not think a formal education is a requirement for being a successful entrepreneur. I think you should do courses and learn to do the skills and have the skills that you specifically need in your field. I think that is far more valuable than having formal degrees. If entrepreneurship is the way you want to go, if you want to climb the corporate ladder or get promotions, you may need some qualifications for that, right? If you want to be a doctor, you better have a medical degree because you're not operating on me without the medical degree, right? So I guess it depends on what you really want to do. But for entrepreneurship itself, that is not really required. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. And with that, we are concluding part 1 of Your Creative Force episode 22 today. Are entrepreneurs born or made? And we will be back shortly with part 2 of our show today.
Catch the fire of creativity. Visit artbyavianne.com. AVIANNE. And now we return to our show with Avianne.
We are back with part 2 of Your Creative Force episode 22, Entrepreneurs Born or Made. And we are going to delve a little deeper into, are entrepreneurs essentially born or essentially made, in part 2 of our show today. So there is such a thing as an entrepreneurial type, right? I think you guys have covered it by now from the show, from part 1. And entrepreneurial types are born with certain personality traits that they genetically possess. These traits enable them to kind of have an improved chance of being successful as entrepreneurs. But, and this is the big but, right? Research tells us that this only works in their favor if they stick with it and develop these traits to work in their favor, right? Remember my example in the beginning of Mozart? Mozart's musical ability is completely meaningless and completely not related to success in life unless he actually delves into it and becomes really great at music and does the work that actually enables him to become a brilliant musician, right? Otherwise, we see that that is pretty much useless, right? Unless we actually utilize it. So, that being said, I want us to look at another article that was written by someone named Michelle Sims. And Michelle Sims, at the time of writing this article, was a personal and professional developmental coach. Okay. This article was posted by the admin of the Bellingham Business Journal on May 31 in 2008. So this article dates a little further back than the one by our previous author, right? But I find it so fascinating, and it's such a good article with such juicy content that I really wanted to share this with you guys, because it just goes a little more deeper into the entrepreneurial personality. Okay. And this article is about, in fact, the entrepreneurial personality. So Michelle writes in this article, whether entrepreneurial characteristics are inherited or learned, most experts agree that those with the entrepreneurial personality are independent, willing to take calculated risks, creative, hard to satisfy, energetic, driven and passionate, as well as self-confident and able to learn as they go. And now we are going to stand still at each of these points and read what she wrote about each of these points, okay? So, firstly, most experts agree that those with the entrepreneurial personality are independent. Entrepreneurs enjoy working on their own and being in charge of their own projects. They have difficulty working for others or executing others' ideas without adding their individual spin. They would rather work for themselves and chance failure than work for a regular paycheck. Then, they are willing to take calculated risks. While most people enjoy the safety and comfort that comes with regular work and a patterned lifestyle, entrepreneurs are willing to put themselves on the line for their ideas. They also understand how to cultivate these risks and protect what they have worked to create. Now, I can tell you, I definitely match the two first qualities that she mentions here. I'm definitely independent. I'm not going to tell you the details, but recently I encountered a clash in business. I clashed with someone in business. And as a result of the way I clashed with this person, I discovered that in a certain aspect of my business, I built quite a reputation for myself as being the maverick. I realized people actually view me as a maverick, someone who acts independently and do their own thing and is not necessarily relying on the norms or the values valued by others to operate, right? I can operate completely autonomously, and I do not need others to check up on me or see that I do my work or do my thing. I'll just do my thing, right? Whether other people approve of it or not, I'm just going to do my thing because I want to move my ball forward and I'm focused, and that's how I operate. And I realized that to some people, that's scary, right? I actually managed to freak people out because of that trait, because a lot of times I find myself as a creative entrepreneur in environments where people like things to be predictable, right? A lot of my clients or a lot of my students are people who are in professions or operate in the system every day with a lot of things that are predictable to them. And then sometimes I come here as this maverick and I just operate autonomously, and people pause and they look at me and they go, wow, I wonder how that works, that someone can be that way, right? I even find that that actually happens with other artists. A lot of times other artists are very puzzled by me because they may have preconceived ideas about how the art industry functions or how they have themselves or their organization set up with relation to the art industry. And then I come along and I tell them, well, actually, I do it completely the opposite way. Or I do this and that and this and that. And have you thought about it in this and this and this way? And I actually realize I'm totally taking these people out of their box and I'm scary to them in some kind of way, which I find funny, but I have to realize that, and I have to be patient, right? As entrepreneurs, we have to be patient with people who may not always understand the way we operate, okay? I'm also definitely willing to take calculated risks. I do not find my life to be very predictable. I kind of every single week, sometimes on a daily basis, but at least once a week, I find that I am doing doing things that I did not even know I was going to do the week before, right? And I like it. It's exciting. My journey feels like an adventure to me. My life feels really hardcore and juicy to me because I never know exactly what is going to happen next. A new opportunity may pop up out of nowhere, and then I have to go, okay, do I take this? Do I not take this? What is the risk? Is there a risk? Can I handle the risk? Do I want to take this on right now? And I find that dynamic and exciting, right? So for me to just be stuck in a 9-to-5 job would be really hard by now, because over the years I've gotten so used to having this really exciting, unpredictable life, right? And when you get used to having your life like that, going back to the norm is really hard. I think it would be hard for me, right? Then Michelle continues and she says they are creative. Personalities that are entrepreneurial are creative, right? I don't have to tell you that I agree with this and that I am definitely creative, right? You should know that by now. Our show is called The Creative Force, your creative force, after all, right? Entrepreneurs are constantly looking at the world in a new light and considering how a product or service could be improved. They often take fresh angles on old problems or harness new technology for novel uses. I definitely do that, and I fully agree with her on that. Then, entrepreneurs are also, she writes, hard to satisfy. Entrepreneurs are not satisfied with moderate success. They don't want moderate success, right? They often think many steps ahead and quickly invest profits into new projects, businesses, marketing campaigns, and ideas. Even when business is going well, they are constantly striving to improve it, right? This thing about moderate success, I can tell you guys, is really true. A lot of people think I am really crazy because I always want to build upward and forward. I don't just sit down somewhere and accept the norm, right? I always want to improve upon things. I always look for a fresh idea, a new way, a better way that I can expand selling my work or taking on new students in a different field, right? I always look for those opportunities. So definitely hard to satisfy. Then, energetic, driven, and passionate. Michelle writes, even if you have all of the other traits of an entrepreneur, it is almost impossible to succeed through the long hours and hard work needed to create a successful business without energy, drive, and passion. These traits help businesses get off the ground and also inspire employees, right? I have to tell you, I'm learning this more and more. I don't have full-time employees yet, but I do contract a whole lot of people to do different things for me in my business. And I find that if I don't have the vision, if I don't drive the vision, if I don't show up motivated and dynamic and energetic and passionate, and if I can't translate that to my contractors, then my business kind of feels slumpy, right? So I really have to bring it. And this is very true. Okay, they're also self-confident. In business, being hesitant or unsure can quickly lead to failure. The ability to convince others to believe in your product is sometimes as simple as believing in your product. If you think you can succeed, you improve your chances of success significantly. I can also tell you that this is very true. Able to learn as they go. You often hear of the entrepreneur who never attended high school or dropped out of college. However, this does not mean that they are not educated or that they cannot learn. It simply means that they often have the ability to learn through experience and extract lessons from real life situations and ventures. That is what Michelle writes, okay? And then she goes on, and by the way, I completely agree with her on all these points. They're all very, very true, okay? Then she goes on and she speaks about honing skills and traits, right? This is really important. If you have a knack for spotting a skill or a trait that you know you need for doing something specific in your business to succeed, and you can nail that down and you can take it and you can hone it, you can work it, right? You can develop it. You can step out of your comfort zone and you can embrace it. That, to me, just like in the article that Michelle Sims writes here, wrote here, it's very, very critical. While some of the above traits, she writes, such as a passion for what you do, have large intrinsic and innate aspects that we can't altogether change, many of the facets of the entrepreneurial personality can be practiced, improved upon, and learned. For example, even though some might be born with the gift of being creative without a concerted effort, all of us can learn the skills creative people take when developing ideas and detailing the particulars of a new venture. The ability to learn as you go is another skill set that, while it can be a natural ability, can also be perfected by those born without the inclination. Step back from a recent business transaction or plan, for instance, right? She's giving us an example here. How could it have been executed more smoothly? How did the other person act? And what aspects of their business could be remodeled and molded to help your own enterprise? How could you have saved time and money? Another step that you can take toward becoming a more successful entrepreneur is to become comfortable with aspects of the entrepreneurial personality that may seem uncomfortable, difficult, or awkward to you. Perhaps you want to act independently and take more calculated risks, but find that you are stopped by your fears or by other conflicting personality traits that you may have. In this case, you need to ease yourself into the idea of becoming more independent by taking small steps in that direction and by completing small tasks that familiarize yourself with these thoughts and actions. In the end, the key to becoming a successful entrepreneur may lie in the ability to self-reflect and learn to emulate those successful entrepreneurs that have come before us. Okay, and I'm going to quickly go over these things again. Michelle Sims, a professional and personal development coach, wrote, the entrepreneurial personality includes entrepreneurs want to be independent. They are willing to take calculated risks. They are creative. They are hard to satisfy. They are energetic, driven, and passionate. They are self-confident. They are able to learn as they go. And then there is this aspect of honing skills and traits. And I just want to pause here before we end part 2 of our show today and mention the following to you. This is where I, in my personal journey, have found and would encourage others to find the value of a coach, of a business coach. I have been coached by different people at different times, some in a formal capacity, some in an informal capacity, but I definitely value mentorship and coaching in my journey because there are people who are further along in their journey than I am or who have different skills and different strengths than my own. And when I learn from them, I find that is the best way for me to hone skills and traits that I may not be comfortable with. Okay. You may be surprised to know that one of the things I was not at all comfortable with was speaking to people in English. Okay. I did not find it a very comfortable thing to do in business because English is my second language. And especially after I came to the States, I didn't like it because I felt like my accent is weird. People are not going to understand what I'm saying in the States. They're going to think I'm strange, or maybe my accent doesn't make me sound really very schooled or very smart in certain people's views. I really had fears like that. And I didn't really like speaking to people about business things when I first came to the States, right? So it took me a few years to become comfortable with that. And I had some mentors who helped me along the way and who encouraged me and told me that it's really not an issue. And that I was totally making it a much bigger issue in my head than it really should be. And I kind of held myself back a little bit because of it in the beginning, right? Now I am more comfortable and I can do it a lot better, and so much so that I've even ventured out into doing this radio show, Your Creative Force, right? So this is not something that initially came naturally to me to do a radio show like this, but I grew into it, right? And I want to offer this as encouragement to a lot of you guys and girls out there. You can grow into things, right? I know that the more I grow and hone my skills, the more I learn about what I can learn and what I am capable of, I can tell you the more I know that and learn all that, the more I know that there's so much more I still have to learn, right? I'm always going to learn. I'm always going to grow. I always think of the great artist Michelangelo and what he said near the end of his very long life. Michelangelo was very old for an artist at that time, right? He became quite old. He lived until he was in his 90s, and a lot of people at that time didn't have a very long life expectancy. So near the end of his life, they asked him, what is his great takeaway, right? What lesson can he leave people with in the arts? And he said, I'm still learning. And I find that so profound, because if someone as brilliant and as dedicated, as successful and as passionate, as creative as Michelangelo, as brilliant as that man was, if someone like that at the end of their long life, when they're already in their late 80s, early 90s, can say, I am still learning, then who am I to differ, right? And I want to encourage you, you have to realize you are always going to be a little bit uncomfortable. You're always going to have to push yourself a little more if you want to be an entrepreneur, right? If you're someone who just wants the comfort and the predictable kind of life of a paycheck or of just kind of like average kind of existence, you are not going to like it. You're going to like your comfort zones. You're going to choose your comfort zones. You're going to sit in your comfort zones. And if that's what you want to do and that makes you happy, more power to you. But if you have an entrepreneurial streak or an entrepreneurial dream, that is just never going to be enough. But if you want to make your dreams real and not have it always just be a dream, you definitely will have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone and find some doable steps, find yourself some mentors, some coaches, some networking partners, and grow and do it deliberately. Okay. One thing I can tell you is entrepreneurship absolutely does not happen and does not sustain itself without work. If you think entrepreneurship means that you sit around on the beach and drink cocktails all day while you type a few things on a computer every now and then, then I have a very sad reality, a sad wake-up call waiting for you, because I can tell you that is not at all an accurate picture of entrepreneurship. And I actually get upset with people who tell people and who project the image out there into the world that you can just sit and the money will roll in. That is not how it works. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of small, doable steps building upon each other to actually create a business that is functional, with a healthy culture, with good values, if you want to grow something into something really successful, right? That is what it is about. You're always going to have to be willing to grow and be taken out of your comfort zone. And with that, we are going to end part 2 of our show today, Your Creative Force, episode 22, Entrepreneurs Born or Made.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a fire. And now we return to our show with your host, Avianne.
And we are back with part 3 of our show today, Your Creative Force, episode 22, Entrepreneurs Born or Made. And in part 3, I just want to conclude with my personal take on the matter. I agree for the most part with what these bloggers or writers from part 1 and part 2 of our show today say. But in my experience, the most effective qualities that a person needs to be a successful entrepreneur, and I have listed 15 qualities here, are not only most definitely a combination of DNA and personal development, they are also traits that need to be consistently and constantly grown and nurtured by anyone who is serious about being entrepreneurial or being a hardcore level 4 entrepreneur. And you have to understand this, right? In some of our previous episodes, I've mentioned that there are different levels of entrepreneurship, right? I myself are for the most part a level 2 entrepreneur. started out as a level 1, took it to level 2, hopefully we'll take it to level 3. I don't even right now, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't even know if I will completely take it to a level 4. Okay. I probably won't. Level 4 entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs like Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Richard Branson. They are entrepreneurs that build global empires on an epic scale. Okay. Very few entrepreneurs actually achieve that level. And so I am not going to sit here and try and compare myself to those guys. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think that is necessarily my path or my journey. And much like when I first became an entrepreneur, should I ever stumble upon a journey like that and become a level 4 entrepreneur, I'm sure I will do so and I will be ready for it, but I'm not putting my eggs all in that basket because I am realistic and in tune enough with my own journey to know that I might not want that kind of level of stress and that kind of level of commitment to what I do every day that really just probably would freak me out and stress me out. So whatever level you're on, hobby level, level 1 or level 4, you will have a total global empire. These 15 traits are what I believe really matter, right? These are traits that you really need to have as an entrepreneur. So, number 1, tenacity. Without tenacity, you will quit at the first sign of difficulty. Number 2, endurance. It is a marathon and not a sprint. Remember that. Number 3, compassion or empathy. You have to see people as people, not as commodities. They are not robots who are working for you or machines. They are people, right? Number 4, vision. Without vision, you will become a boat adrift in a vast, vast ocean. Okay? Vision should promote focus for you. Number 5, commitment. The ability to stick with people and tasks that move the ball forward and to do so consistently, right? Number 6, self-control. Never allowing emotions to run ahead of your intellect or intuition. This, by the way, self-control in the emotional sense, I'm a highly emotional person. So I'll just give you a little personal thing here. Controlling my emotions can sometimes be very difficult for me. I had to develop the skill to do so, and I am still learning how to control my emotions under all circumstances, especially when people rub me the wrong way, especially when people trigger me or when people misjudge me or treat me badly. I can get triggered, and I have to really watch that so that I don't act out unprofessionally in front of people, right? So number 6, self-control. Number 7, intuition. You need to be able to move fast and move on instinct when needed. Number 8, foresight. You need the ability to spot trends and overcome obstacles others may not even perceive as being there. Not a lot of people have the insight, the foresight to predict problems before they come up and solve them before they even happen, so they don't even happen at all, right? Number 9, strategy oriented. Surround yourself with intelligent people who can help you create solutions and strategic advantages. Nobody is smart or accomplished in every single way. Okay. So when you think of strategy, you have to include strategic people in your business as part of your strategy. Definitely important. Number 10, doer or taking action, right? Not just a thinker or a planner, but someone who takes action. Okay. I can tell you from experience that I sometimes take action even before I feel my ducks are in a row. I do that because sometimes to take action and move forward is more important than to have the perfect thing all together and all figured out, right? Sometimes I wait until my ducks are more or less in a row, but there are times when I just take action and I just go forward because I realize if I wait until this whole situation lines up perfectly, it'll never happen. I'll be waiting 10 years from now. I'll be waiting 20 years from now. And I do not want that to happen to me, right? Number 11. Creative. The more creative you're thinking, the more you will be able to set yourself apart as a front runner in your industry. One entrepreneur that is a level 4 entrepreneur who I always think of as being extremely creative is Elon Musk. If you don't know who I'm talking about, Google Elon Musk. He is the guy behind Tesla Motor Company. Okay. Go Google him. He is a very fascinating entrepreneur. Number 12, counterculture. Nobody becomes great by being like everyone else. You are going to have to go against the tide in your industry or in your environment to become successful. Remember that. Number 13, courage. Your ability to stand firmly and calmly when storms rage. Okay? That's very hard. Okay. In 2013 to 2015, I went through a personal crisis that was really epic in my personal life. And in spite of going through that, I had to stand with great courage, very firmly and very calmly in my capacity as a business owner, because it was at the same time when I was building my art academy to the next level. It was very difficult, but I did it. So when I tell you, sitting here, speaking from experience, it can be done. Have courage. Okay. Number 14. Leadership. You must have leadership ability. If you don't have it, you have to develop it, right? Number 15, being teachable. This comes with being humble and having some humility and knowing that you don't know it all. Entrepreneurs constantly grow their territory and expertise by being lifelong students, by being teachable, right? You never want to be the smartest person in the room. Remember that. People who come across like arrogant know-it-alls, they really bug me sometimes because I sometimes just want to go up to them and ask them, do you feel like anyone can even teach you anything? Or do you think you really know everything? Because I can tell you guys right now, I certainly do not think I know everything. I think I know very little. And most successful entrepreneurs that I have come across and have rubbed shoulders with, even millionaires and almost billionaire level entrepreneurs that I have spoken to personally, I can tell you that one of the things they all tell me is that they learn. They all have coaches. Even successful entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs had coaches and mentors and networkers that informed them and instructed them and taught them certain things, right? Nobody who becomes successful can do that on their own, thinking they know it all. Okay, so I'm quickly going to mention these traits again. One is tenacity, 2 is endurance, 3 is compassion or empathy, 4 is vision, 5 is commitment, 6 is self-control, 7 is intuition, 8 is foresight, 9 is strategy-oriented, number 10 is doer, taking action, number 11 is creative, number 12 is counterculture, number 13 is courage, number 14 is leadership, and number 15 is teachable. Okay. Last piece of advice before we conclude our show today. Surround yourself with the best resources and the best people you possibly can, and your chances for success will increase dramatically. Absolutely learn to live from your own unique creative force so that you get to know how to utilize your own creative treasures to propel your personal and professional success. Remember that whichever traits you are born with, you can always grow them and develop them, and you can learn new skills. You are a human being and you can learn, right? So being teachable is always very important. Then, our quote of the day is from the very famous entrepreneur Warren Buffett. He said, "Someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago." And with that food for thought, I'm going to love and leave you. This was episode 22 of Your Creative Force. Entrepreneurs are both born and made. Talk to you next time. This is Avianne signing off.
Talent is a flame. Genius, a fire. visit us at artbyavian.com. Tune in next time as we explore your creative force. Thank you for listening.